الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue inshallah ta'ala with the subject of al-Fiqh, and we reached the chapter of Salatul Jama'ah, Salat al-Jama'ah. Before we start, hopefully everyone received that sheet with regards to the hadith this week, the hadiths of this week. So we only have 5 hadith this week inshallah ta'ala to memorize. And according to that sheet, inshallah ta'ala, tonight we'll take hadith number 4, which is, I believe, hadith number 98 in the booklet. They're all in the booklet, inshallah, but this is to make it easy, and the translation is there also, inshallah ta'ala. But we'll do that at the end. So first, continuing with the subject of Salatul Jama'ah, but there was I guess some people didn't still take the quiz. So there was 2 questions. We'll see inshallah ta'ala first after everybody finishes. We'll see inshallah ta'ala. Everybody will get full credit for it because it can mean more than one thing. And it's not about the exams, of course. It's about the knowledge itself. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us sincerity. And as mentioned, seeking the ilm, the knowledge of the deen of Islam, is not the same as seeking any type of knowledge. And inshallah, maybe we'll have just a separate lecture about this. The major differences. And it should not be treated the same, of course. One of the basic things that we need to always remember that al-ilmu or talabul ilmi ibadah. Talabul ilm is ibadah. Seeking the knowledge of the deen of Islam is ibadah, is an act of ubudiyya to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that by itself makes the matter completely different than anything else. And one of the characteristics of the ibadah is that it's not to be known by one's reason. It's wahy, revelation from Allah. So you submit yourself to the wahy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore we learn to follow what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. طيب, Salatul Jama'ah. Salat al-Jama'ah, he says, the first mas'ala or the first matter in Salatul Jama'ah, hikmatu mashru'iyyatiha. Hikmatu mashru'iyyatiha, that means the wisdom behind its mashru'iyya or its legislation, the purpose behind Salatul Jama'ah, what's the wisdom behind it. And talking about the wisdom behind al-ibadat is valid, of course, and the ulama are the ones that would talk about these things based on the ilm, of course. Of course, as he says, Salatul Jama'ah min ajall al-ta'at, from the great acts of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and one of the greatest acts of ibadat. And it shows this madahir al-ulfa wa tarahum, the mercy among the Muslims towards one another, and the love in their hearts towards one another, and the equality wal-musawah bayn al-muslimin, when they're all standing in the same saf, no difference between rich or poor, or strong and weak, and so on. When they all get together in a small gathering 5 times a day, every day and every night, behind one leadership, which is the Imam of the Salah, following the same actions, facing the same direction. So the hearts should follow. And with all of this, I want us to remember this. There's always this relationship between the physical actions and the effect of it in the heart. Always, as a principle in every matter of the deen. There's no separation. It's not like there's some physical actions that has nothing to do with the heart and things to be done by the heart that has nothing to do with the physical actions. They're always together. So every physical action of ibadah that we are commanded to do, there is something that should, would resonate in the heart or has an effect in the heart. So the fact that the people in Salatul Jama'ah together, that means the heart's supposed to be together. And this is what even the Prophet ﷺ, when he said, لَتُسَوُّنَّ صُفُوفَكُمْ أَوْ لَيُخَالِفَنَّ اللَّهُ بَيْنَ وُجُوهِكُمْ, and in another narration, بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ. Either you make your rows of the salah straight and filling the gaps, لَتُسَوُّنَّ صُفُوفَكُمْ Otherwise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make your hearts against one another. Or the relation your faces. So what is the relationship between physically making the row straight in the salah versus the hearts being against each other? Allah knows best, but this is a relationship. There's an effect here. So the fact that when you come and you stand next to your brother in the salah, shoulder to shoulder, foot to foot, filling the gaps, this is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And don't forget that there's an objective also behind this, and that is for the hearts to be together. As some mentioned, if people are maybe making slightly different the salah in some of the positions, but their hearts are together, is better than the hearts to be against one another and they're doing the same thing. Meaning in the valid differences of opinions among the ulama in the salah. So this is something or a wisdom behind it, and it has its effect upon oneself and the ummah in large. So this is hikmat, or some of the wisdom behind Salatul Jama'ah. We can go on and on. Ibn Qayyim and others, they mention so many different things. You know, how even the deen of Islam is perfect when it comes to your optional salah versus the Salatul Jama'ah. Salatul Jama'ah is to be established. It's a fard upon the men, as we will get to know inshallah ta'ala. So that means in any locality, in any community, there has to be many places where people can establish the 5 daily salah at ease. And then you have the Salatul Jumu'ah, which is a bigger gathering. So even some of the small masajid can be closed so that the Muslims will gather in a big gathering in the Masjid al-Jama'. And there's wisdom behind that too. So that not every musalla, people are there for Salat al-Jumu'ah also. No, it's meant that they would be in a bigger places where they, bigger, area-wise, those who are in neighboring neighborhoods, for example, they would gather in a bigger masjid. The Masjid al-Jama' used to be in the past one masjid in the whole town, where everyone will be gathered for Salatul Jumu'ah. All of that, of course, if the place will be sufficient and all kinds of things, because Salatul Jumu'ah is mandatory. And then with regards to Salatul Eid, even bigger gathering, Al-Hajj, which is the gathering of the entire Ummah. So all these things are to recognize and to see the effect of. We're supposed to be brief. Hukm Salatul Jama'ah. Second thing is the hukm. Every time the word hukm meaning the ruling. Hukm. If we say hukm, what does that mean? The answer has to be one of 5 things. And we have to remember some of these terminologies. We need to keep it as it is in Arabic language, inshallah. So the word hukm means the ruling, right? So hukm. What is hukm Salatul Jama'ah? Either it's one of the 5 ahkam. What is the ahkam al-khamsa? The 5 ahkam are the wajib or the fard. It doesn't matter if you say wajib or fard, which is the obligation. The opposite to that is haram, the forbidden acts. And then you have number 3, the lesser level than the wajib is mustahab, the recommended acts. The opposite of the recommended act is the makruh, the disliked. And then the 5th is al-jaiz or al-mubah, the permissible act. So every action that a human being do in this life can be put under one of these categories. So wajib versus the haram, the mustahab, the recommended versus the makruh, and the jaiz or the mubah. Or you can say wajib or fard, then mustahab, then jaiz, then makruh, then haram. Doesn't matter what order it is. But so every time, if you have asked a question, what is the hukm? Ma hukmu salat al-jama'ah? You have to say one of the 5. You cannot say it's good, it's important. No. Hukm, fiqh-wise, we have to use the language of the fiqh. That means you have to use one of these 5. So that's why he says واجبة على الرجال الأحرار القادرين حضرا سفرا. واجبة. Salat al-Jama'ah, this is mu'annath, this is feminine, so that's why it says wajibah. Wajibah with a ta' marbuta. But wajibah, some things are wajibah or wajib or obligatory, not upon everyone. So if you say wajib or Salatul Jama'ah wajibah, that means every single person, newly born, 1 day old, and someone sick, women, men, everybody. So it's not the case. So that's why there is details. So wajibatun upon who? Remember, since this is said, forgive me, I don't like to say things on the side, but One time a person embraced Islam. He was, mashallah, very dedicated. He embraced Shahada at Maghrib time and Isha. The next morning, Fajr, it was very cold in a certain place, snowing and everything. He brought the whole family, himself and his wife, and they had a newly born. And they all dressed up, mashallah, the way they would go, for example, to the church, dressed up and coming for Fajr, winter time, snowing, because he thought that Salatul Jama'ah is a must for everybody. So he told him, take it easy, only yourself, and then leave the rest at home. So it's wajiba ala rijal, it's obligatory. Upon men, count how many conditions here. It has to be fulfilled. Salatul Jama'ah wajiba, obligatory, ala rijal, upon men. That means women, it's not obligatory upon them. Obligatory. We have to make sure that the fiqh teaches us to be very precise in the way we say things and the way we think and everything else. So that means if they come and pray Jama'ah, sure, but it's not wajiba upon them. It's not obligatory upon them. It's upon the men. Al-ahrar, free. Al-hurr versus al-abd. So if someone is a slave, right, it's not obligatory upon him because he does not own his time. He's not able to do things on his own. Al-qadirin meaning, this is all plural tense. Those who are able to. They have the qudra, they have the ability. Because that requires for a person to move, to walk, to ride, things like this. So the physical ability has to be there. Someone is not able to, it's not wajiba upon him, it's not mandatory upon him. Hadaran wa safaran. Hadaran meaning, from hadara, present, but it refers to being local in your resident place. You're not, which is the opposite of that, safaran, and traveling. So whether you are in your locality or you're traveling, Salatul Jama'ah wajib. This is the opinion that is taken. It's wajib, that means it's mandatory upon men, free, able, whether they are traveling or not. And al-qadirin, the word qadirin, which is they're able to when it comes to the salah in the masjid. But if they miss the salah in the masjid, it's still Salatul Jama'ah wajibah, right? To the best of one's ability. So if a person misses it in the masjid, he needs to pray Salatul Jama'ah at home, or pray Jama'ah with whatever he has with people with him, because Salatul Jama'ah wajibah, whether a person is traveling or not. So if a person is traveling with a company, then they should pray Jama'ah together if there's no masjid. If he's traveling alone and there's no masjid, he should not make it difficult for himself. He just pray Jama'ah. And there's a hadith where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves that man that will be in the middle of nowhere, a shepherd or the like of this, and the time for the salah comes, he makes adhan and makes salah. And it's a deed loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because that person is not showing off. He's alone and he's still observing the salah. So there's no such a thing as that, I won't travel because I'm not sure if I'm going to pray Salatul Jama'ah or not. No, travel if it's halal travel, seek means and everything like this, but to observe these things to best of one's ability. So wajibatun, we're talking about the wujub here, ala al-rijal, number 1, ahrar, number 2, free, al-qadirin, those who are able, hadaran wa safaran, which is number 4. Hadaran wa safaran will make them 1, which is the status of the person, whether he's traveling or not. The evidence of that, لقوله تعالى وإذا كنت فيهم فأقمت لهم الصلاة فلتقم طائفة منهم معك. The ayah in Surah An-Nisa. If you are with them, فأقمت لهم الصلاة. This is Salatul Khawf. The salah in the time of war, when people are in the battlefield. فأقمت لهم الصلاة. If you make إقامة for the salah for them, فلتقم طائفة منهم معك. Let a group of them stand with you to be in the salah. And one of the ways is that they would split into 2 groups. One will pray behind the imam and the rest guarding them in front of the enemy, watching the enemy. And once the first group, they finish with the imam, the first rak'ah, the imam would keep on standing. They stand with the imam for the first rak'ah. And the second rak'ah, he goes with this. When they are in the second rak'ah, he stand long and they finish. They depart with their intentions from the imam, the group that are praying with him, and they would make ruku' and sujood, and he's keep on standing, making his salah still. And then they finish, and then the second group would join, and the group that prayed would guard. And then they would lead, they would become behind him as ma'mumin, and then he would make ruku' and sujood and finish the salah, and then they get up and they complete their salah. And how that is in the battlefield for it to be prayed so that everyone prays in jama'ah. This is the great evidence that shows that they're not to pray alone. They're supposed to be like that, fighting for the sake of Allah and things like this, but they have to pray jama'ah, unless it's already there's fighting going on, which is the ayah says فَرِجَالًا أَوْ رُكْبَانًا. If they're not able to have that even time out to make the salah, then they would pray while they're walking and running with their heads and their ruku' a little bit forward and the sujood while they're running, even in the battlefield, not to miss the salah. But in that case, they would pray alone because they're not able to make it for the jama'ah. So he mentioned this evidence, and there are many evidences, of course, but this is the evidence that he mentioned, and we don't need to get into the details because what is meant here is to be brief. وَالْأَمْرُ لِلْوُجُوبِ. He mentioned here a qaida, a principle, that the command is always, you take any amr, any command, any order as that this is wajib, this is mandatory, unless proven otherwise. Whether it's from the actions of the Prophet ﷺ, or he approved someone, he did opposite to this order and he approved them, or he said opposite to that ﷺ. And when it comes to the command to pray Salatul Jama'ah, there's no evidence from the actions of the Prophet ﷺ. He never prayed fard alone ﷺ, unless the sickness, which is the sickness is one of the valid reasons to miss Salatul Jama'ah. The Prophet ﷺ never approved for anyone to pray alone, for example, and there's no statement from the Prophet ﷺ that would say that it doesn't have to, or you don't have to pray Salat al-Jama'ah or in congregation. So وَالْأَمْرُ لِلْوُجُوبِ وَإِذَا كَانَ ذَلِكَ مَعَ الْخَوْفِ فَمَعَ الْأَمْنِ أَوْلَى. Why he used this ayah? Because if this was with the khawf, with the fear, Salatul Khawf, so that means with al-amn, with security, is even more as an obligation, which is, if that's the case in the state of khawf, fear, what is it would be then when people have the security and they're not in war or anything, and they are in the comfort of their homes and there's a masjid and things of that nature? There's no excuse, and they have the ability. And again, so this is for men. So this is the hukm of Salat al-Jama'ah. Someone would say difference of opinion later, inshallah. We'll take in this as the hukm واجبة على الرجال الأحرار القادرين حضرا وصفا. The third مسألة, or the next one, ما تنعقد به صلاة الجماعة. ما تنعقد, العقدة from عقيدة, what tie, something is a knot. But here it refers, when it comes into the verb sense, that when what makes Salatul Jama'ah established or become in place. What makes a salah to be Salatul Jama'ah? 1 or 2 or 3 or what? He says تنعقد صلاة الجماعة بإمام ومأموم ولو أنثى. Salatul Jama'ah is established by Imam and Ma'mum. One, of course, it's not Jama'ah, it's one. But it has to be an Imam, at least one. One Ma'mum is sufficient to make it Salatul Jama'ah, even if the Ma'mum, if the follower, is Untha, is a female. So that also established Salatul Jama'ah. If it's a man and his wife, for example, that's Salatul Jama'ah. لحديث أبي موسى مرفوعا الإثنان فما فوقهما جماعة. The hadith 2 and above is Jama'ah. And this is, a person would say, well, that's an obvious thing. No, not necessarily. Because plural in Arabic is how many? What makes plural? More than 2. Linguistically, plural is 3. In English, 2 is plural. صح? But in Arabic, 2 is dual, muthanna. But plural is 3. That's why many things in fiqh, the number 3 is mentioned, and a person will say, what's the evidence? There's 3. Like 3 movements in the salah breaks the salah. As some of the ulama, they say, how many movements in the salah breaks the salah if a person moves without a reason? Some said 3. But there's no hadith or anything like this that says 3 breaks the salah. Those ulama, they mention 3 because 3 is plural. So that means it's too many movements. It's not 1 or 2. So what's the minimum of the plural is 3. But again, this is a different mas'ala, is what makes a person looks like he's not making salah, he's just moving too much. Again, I'm still going out of the subject too much. So 2 or more is what makes Salatul Jama'ah, even if it's the ma'mum is untha. Of course, a female it is not permissible to lead a male in the salah. This is consensus. There's no doubt about this whatsoever. Female can lead a female, but cannot lead a male in the salah, even if it's her husband, even if it's her son, doesn't matter. The next مسألة مكان أداء صلاة الجماعة, the place of making أداء, the establishing صلاة الجماعة. Why this is significant here? Because there's difference between حكم صلاة الجماعة in general versus the place. When we talk about صلاة الجماعة, people think that it means to be in the masjid. Yes, of course. But with the fiqh points here, you would find that some had said that it's obligatory in general. Doesn't matter where, as long as you pray jama'ah, even if it's at home. And some said, no, it has to be in the masjid. And this is what is more correct. Salatul Jama'ah is to be in the masjid. But he says, makanu ada'i Salatul Jama'ah. He takes the opinion of, in the madhab, which is what's mu'tamad in madhab Imam Ahmad, is that Salatul Jama'ah wajiba in general, in any place. وَتُسَنُّ الْجَمَاعَةُ فِي الْمَسْجِدِ. That it's tusann, that means it's recommended in the masjid. وَتَجُوزُ فِي غَيْرِ إِذَا دَعَتِ الْحَاجَةُ لِذَلِكَ. And it's permissible in other than the masjid if there's a need for that. So, and of course, there is the other hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, when he did not give permission to Abdullah ibn Maktoum to pray at home, هل تسمع النداء? Do you hear the adhan? He said, yes. He says, لا أجد لك رخصة. I can't find any excuse for you because you hear the adhan. حي على الصلاة, that means come to the salah. If you don't come, this is a sinful act. And the Prophet ﷺ would not say something like that to someone unless it's an obligation. And when he's a'ma, when he's blind, when Medina has dangerous animals or things like that, and he still did not give him the rukhsa or the break or the excuse to pray at home, and other things, the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ almost wanted to go burn the houses of those who do not come in the masjid if it wasn't for the women and the children. And of course, the Prophet ﷺ didn't do that, but it showed the severity of the action when a person does not pray Salatul Jama'ah when the adhan is being called. And those who would not pray in the masjid Jama'ah, men at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, as Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said, لا يتخلف عنها إلا منافق معلوم النفاق. That at their time, the only ones that would miss Salatul Jama'ah is the munafiq, hypocrite, معلوم النفاق. Well known that he's hypocrite, not even hidden hypocrite. No, he is well known. Everybody knows that he's a hypocrite. These are the ones that would miss Salatul Jama'ah. So the evidences are many, and that's why it should not be a question, for those, again, men, ahrar, qadirin. And this is the way of the Prophet ﷺ. This is how the Sahaba radiallahu anhum were upon. And we should not allow ourselves if a person increases his knowledge in something or differences of opinion, make him leave an action that he was upon. No. But it shows that the ease of the matter, that if a person was not able to, then there is ease in the matter. If he's not able to, or he missed it, or whatever, this is the exception of his life, not the norm. So this is the makan, the place of praying Salatul Jama'ah. وَلِلنِّسَاءِ مُنْفَرِدَاتِ عَنِ الرِّجَالِ. And for women, it's to be separated from men if they pray in Jama'ah. لفعل عائشة وأم سلمة ذكر الدارقطني وأمر صلى الله عليه وسلم أم ورقة أن تؤم أهل دارها. The Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, he ordered Waraqah to lead her family, meaning the women in her family, to lead them. Rawahu Abu Dawud. So if women, they want to lead, they don't have to. Women, it's not obligatory upon them. If they are together, they have a dars together or whatever, they can, time for the salah, each woman pray on her own, that's fine. But if they pray jama'ah, hopefully also they can get the rewards of the jama'ah, but it's not something they're not addressed by Salatul Jama'ah as far as women are concerned. And if they pray Jama'ah, then she would stand in the middle of the line, not to be in front of them. So she would be in the middle of the line with them, and she leads them in the salah. Unlike men, the imam should be in front of them. Well, we'll talk about that inshallah ta'ala later. Then the next subject is qasr as-salah. Qasr as-salah. Qasr as-salah is to shorten the salah. So instead of shortening, the salah, we'll say qasr. Right? So we'll study it as qasr. Like, for example, if in the exam, the question is, what is the meaning of qasr, as-salah? We don't have to put between brackets shortening the salah, because we'll study that the word qasr means shortening the salah. And many of us, we know that already. I mean qasr, I mean jam. So we have to know it like this, inshallah. So qasr as-salah, he says, بالسفر, when a person is traveling, هو رد الرباعية إلى ركعتين, is to make the 4 rak'ah 2. So the qasr is making the 4 rak'ah 2. That's the meaning of it. Whether a person is making qasr, the reason for it, whether it's traveling or whether it's for another reason, because there is other reason that would make a person valid for him to make qasr. But the qasr means that to make the 4 rak'ah 2. That's what it means. To make the ruba'iyya, the 4 rak'ah salah, 2 rak'ah. Can the 3 rak'ah make 2 rak'ah? Is there qasr for Salatul Maghrib? No. Salatul Maghrib is 3 rak'ah. You cannot make it 2 rak'ah. So it's the 4 rak'ah becomes 2. And he says this is one of the great meanings that is established in the Sharia, because it realized the state of the Muslim and to make it easy for him. So that means no one would ever escape or leave the salah. And this is in the Quran and the Sunnah, and it's permissible according, of course, to the consensus of the The second thing with the qasr is al-qasru ammun fil amni wa ghayr. Al-qasr, again shortening the salah, this is a rule that is there, valid, part of the deen, whether a person is secure or not. Because the verse that talked about the qasr is in the context of you fear your enemy. So if whoever just reads the Quran like this, he would think that qasr, the salah, is when people are afraid or in state of fear. And this is something that in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, صدقة تصدق الله بها عليكم فاقبلوا صدقته. This is sadaqah, charity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed it upon you, so accept the sadaqah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it become established, not just in fear, and we got to know that by the Sunnah. That's the importance of the Sunnah, is wahy from Allah, that the qasr becomes even in the state of security, not just fear. So when a person is traveling, whether he is afraid or not afraid, doesn't matter. Just for the fact that he travels, which is makes it valid for him to make qasr. And he mentioned some benefits here. What mentioned in the ayah of the qasr of the salah, خرجت مخرج الغالب. مخرج الغالب, that means some things or some rulings will be mentioned because that's the norm, or that's what was the normally the case at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, because whenever they would travel, for the most time, the life of the Prophet ﷺ, whenever they travel, there's fear of the enemies, something would happen, so there was not security in their traveling. So the word fear comes in the ayah to show that this is the norm of their time, not that it has significance in the ruling. Right? So this is, they call it makhraj al-ghalib. Like, for example, ولا تكرهوا فتياتكم على البغاء إن أردنا تحصنا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not coerce the women, your women, to al-bigha is to be like those professional evildoers with relations. I don't want to say the word explicitly. In aradana tahassunan, if the woman, she wants to be chastised and to be righteous, does it mean that if she doesn't, then it's okay? No, but this is, it comes into the meaning of this is the norm. This is how things are. So anyway, so no one is to take from the verse that it's only when a person fears something. And Ali radiallahu anhu said to Umar, تقصر وقد أمنا, you're making qasr of the salah when we are now safe. At the time of Umar, things were safe. So Umar radiallahu anhu said, عجبت مما عجبت منه. عجبت, you were amazed, or this something that is strange to you. The same thing had happened to me, and I asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said, صدقة تصدق الله بها عليكم فاقبلوا صدقته. This is something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the second point is al-qasr, general, whether it's a person feeling safe or feeling afraid of something, it's all valid for a person when he travels. What is the masafa? What is the distance that a person can make qasr of the salah, the qasr of the 4 rak'ah to be 2 for the salah in the safar and the traveling? He says, وَأَمَّا الْمَسَافَةِ, the ruling here that is mentioned is كُلُّ مَا يُسَمَّى سَفَرًا عُرْفًا وَيُنْقَلُ لَهُ الزَّادُ وَالْمَزَادُ. Every traveling, every distance that people would call safar, that people would call it safar, traveling, urfan, that it's well known, it's known to the people in that particular locality that this is traveling. And وَيُنْقَلُ لَهُ الزَّادُ, and people will take with them provisions with them. So there's major difference when you go, for example, from downtown Chicago to the furthest suburbs of Chicago. You don't pack your bags and put things in the car. You don't do these things, even though it might be you drive for 50 miles or 40 miles or whatever there is. Different than if you're traveling and it's well known that you're traveling. People know that this is a traveling without mentioning distance, without having to mention a specific miles or so. So he mentioned 2 things here. Urfan. Al-urf is what's known, what is known to the people that it's traveling, and people will take provisions with them. A person will say, but we're now living at times, you don't have to take provisions. If you travel even for far distance, you don't have to take nothing with you, and you can purchase things on the way. That's fine. As if there was no such a thing, would you take provisions or not? But the provisions is not the criteria to make it safar. It's what's known to the people that this is safar. And if you're in doubt, this is just on the side, it's not mentioned here. If you are in doubt whether this is traveling or not, in case, what's the ruling then? It's not traveling. Because the original rule is that you're not traveling unless proven otherwise. Not that if you're in doubt, that means let it be. The safer side is that you're not traveling. So this is if you're in doubt. The last mas'ala in the safar, bid'u qasr as-salah. When do you start making qasr of the salah? He says, وَيَبْدَأُ مُسَافِرُ الْقَصْرِ إِذَا فَارَقَ عَامِرَ قَرْيَتِهِ. The ruling here is once a person, he's traveling, right? So he decided that he's traveling, and it's a traveling distance. It's known to be traveling. So when does he start making the 4 rak'ah, 2 rak'ah? Once he depart from his qarya, from his town, from the Amir qaryati, the buildings of the town that he lives in. Once it becomes behind his back, right? He is detached from his town. He can still see it, but the buildings and the people and everything are behind him. Then this is when he can start to shorten the salah. And why this is important to understand this mas'ala, and we said this is the most important thing to understand the masail here. When does a person start or can start to make qasr? And what is the meaning or the significance of faraq? He detached or departed or left his town and it's behind him. Because if a person is not traveling and he's going somewhere nearby, but it's right outside of his town, which is not going to be traveling, he's not going to make qasr. But he departed from his town. Can he make qasr? No. It's only if he is traveling. So if he is traveling, once he leaves his town and it's behind him, and he can see it from, departed from it, then he can start making the qasr, even though he would not do that if he was not traveling. So it's only if he is traveling to a distance or to a place where it's well known to be traveling. Is it clear? So this is the time, or this is when does he shorten the salah. بما يطلق عليه اسم المفارقة عرفا. And this is also the urf. Because some things, is the airport considered to be مفارقة or no? فارق عامر القرية. Is it considered to be you left the town or not? Because he says here عرفا, what's known to be that you departed from the city. If the airport is in the city, it's not considered to be that you left. Some said airports are usually you departed. But when you look into it, some airports are outside. Some airports are in the city. So it's the urf is to recognize the urf or what's known to the people. And he says because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it a condition for the qasr of the salah, shortening the salah ala al-darbi fil ard, based on وإذا ضربتم في الأرض فليس عليكم جناح أن تقصروا من الصلاة. The ayah وإذا ضربتم في الأرض. ضربتم في الأرض, that means you start the journey of traveling, hit the ground. And you see on the when you hit the road, right? So subhanallah, there's something here in English. So if you hit the road, this is when you can start to shorten the salah. What do people mean by hitting the road? If you're going from here to Texas, for example, right? So if your street is considered to hit the road, in English, I'm asking, in America, if someone said you hit the road, is it right after you start driving or when you get into the highway? Okay, so that doesn't count here. So it should be something that once you hit the road, in the sense that once you depart from the city. Okay, you departed from the city. So if you're still in the city, you cannot shorten the salah. Even though you packed your bags and everything and you're traveling, you cannot shorten the salah till you depart from the city. Then from after that, you can shorten the salah. So وَلَا يَكُنْ ضَارِبًا فِي الْأَرْضِ حَتَّى يُفَارِقَ عَامِرَ بَلَدِهِ. He is not considered to be ضَارِبًا فِي الْأَرْض, hitting the earth in traveling till he departs from his town. So we mentioned so many things here, but it's only 4 masail. The first one, what is the meaning of qasr? The 4 becomes 2, right? Number 2, al-qasr is general, whether a person is afraid or he's not afraid. Because the ayah talked about fear, but it doesn't only pertains to fear. And this is any traveling, whether you are traveling and you're afraid something's going to happen to you or doesn't, a person can make qasr. The third mas'ala is the masafa. What's the distance that makes a person valid for him to make qasr? Is what's known to be traveling urfan. Al-urf, and we'll talk about this urf many times, many masail, the ruling of it refers to the urf, to what's known to the people. And what's known to the people is what is perceived by, normally the people would perceive this as the mas'ala that we just talked about also. What is considered to be too many movements in the salah? Or what does it make? How would you know that someone is walking in the salah that invalidates the salah? If you walk in the salah is not valid. So if someone is standing in the second line and there's a space in the first line, you should fill the space in the first line even during the salah. You would take a step or two if the line is a bit far, but you're not walking. What is the criteria to be very precise? Is what perceived urfan. If I'm sitting here and someone is making salah and I see that person is walking, so he's walking. He's not taking a step or take a sutra or taking a step to protect himself or to get something out of the way or a reason. No, he's walking in the salah, right? So this is something to be perceived with the urf. So the third mas'ala was the distance, and that's what's known urfan to be traveling. And the last one, when does a person start making qasr of the salah, is when he departs from his town. When the town is behind his back and he's already traveling and he's going to a traveling distance. Both they go together. الجمع بين الصلاتين. The second mas'ala here is الجمع بين الصلاتين, to combine between 2 salah. Of course, there's so many masail, right? But we're being brief, and the most important thing is to understand these masail very well. But because of the time, because we need to mention the hadith, let's take the jam', because the next subject is sujood al-sahw. No, let's keep it for next time, because it's going to require some more details. So this is with regards to the qasr. So we took Salatul Jama'ah, the hikmah, the wisdom behind it, the hukm of it, what constitutes the Jama'ah, 2 or more, the place of it, and that it should be Jama'ah in any place. And he says that is recommended to be in the masjid, and for the women, for them to pray on their own if they want to, but Jama'ah. And the qasr, we talked about the qasr with the 4 masail in the qasr. I know there's going to be too many questions with the qasr and masail and things like this, which is fine. But as far as what we're studying, these are the points that we're studying, and we should study them and memorize them and be patient. Do not distract too much when it comes to studying, so that we study in the proper way, inshallah. And then, as we said, the way of where the ulama, they, with this, is that you go through all of the abwab, all the chapters of the fiqh in an entry level, if it's correct to say. That's why you find summarized, shortened books of fiqh quickly, but not in haste. And then you start over again with more details. And there's books for every level, alhamdulillah, by the people of knowledge from hundreds of years ago. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq, inshallah, and the sincerity and the barakah in the time. The hadith of this week, if you have the sheet, inshallah, we send the sheet, there's 5 hadith in it. Everybody has it? Hadith number 4, which is, I believe, is hadith number 98 maybe? I forgot the number of it. In the bigger sheet. The bigger sheet is, let me see, just to get this out of the way. Yes, number 94. No, I'm sorry, nice. It's not 94. Take this away. 93. So 93 in the booklet, but we have this in the sheet for this week. Week 5 hadiths. Like week 5 hadith. We took number 3. لولا أن أشق على أمتي لأمرتهم بالسواك مع كل وضوء. Right? We took this hadith, and you guys, did you take a hadith yesterday? Which is, I took only the part من تعلق تميمة فقد أشرك, which is number 1. This is the only one that from yesterday you need to memorize. من تعلق تميمة فقد أشرك. Right? So today, inshallah ta'ala, we'll take hadith number 4. We'll read it and read after me, inshallah. And these are, I'm going from all over the place in the booklet to make easy, inshallah ta'ala, with those who have difficulty in memorizing, inshallah. Repeat after me, inshallah. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تقوم الساعة حتى يتباهى الناس في المساجد. لا تقوم الساعة حتى يتباهى الناس في المساجد. أخرجه الخمسة إلا الترمذي صححه ابن خزيمة. But you don't have to mention the takhrij here, inshallah. But let's go through the hadith. The hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تقوم الساعة. That means this is one of the signs of the hour. لا تقوم الساعة حتى. The hour would not تقوم, would not be established. I'm not sure. I just copied and pasted the translation, so would not appear. That's fine, right? Would not appear, so it would not be established. The sa'a would not, al-qiyamah is not going to be there. That means this is one of the signs of the hour. حتى يتباهى الناس في المساجد. Till حتى يتباهى الناس, the people would boast about masajid, about the mosques, about the masajid. So علامات الساعة, or the signs of the hour, not always necessarily something bad, right? Not all of it is something bad, but most of it is not a good thing, and one of which is this. This is not a good thing. This is a negative thing, because there's a hadith after it also that we have it. ما أمرت بتشييد المساجد. I was not commanded to build the masajid in such a beautiful way and things like this. And we'll talk about that later, inshallah. But here, لا تقوم الساعة حتى يتباهى الناس في المساجد. يتباهى الناس, as we see the word boast, the people, until the people boast about masajid. And what is the meaning of يتباهى? That people of one masjid would say, our masjid is better than your masjid. That's what يتباهى means. That al-mubaha is when someone is proud of something over something else. And even you have, they call it bahw al-bayt or bahw al-funduq. They say the lobby of the hotel. They call it bahw. Why? Because it's lofty, it's big. So al-mubaha is when someone is boasting over something. So people would, the hour, one of the signs of the hour, and this is something that we clearly see in our times, that people would, one of the ways of it, as the ulama, they said, when people would say this, our masjid, meaning not better than the other masjid in following the deen, no, the building. It's more beautiful than the other masjid. This is how the people will be competing or will be boasting over one masjid over the other masjid. The other meaning, which is valid also as the ulama, they say that people will build the masajid like this. We want to build the best masjid in town. So this masjid is going to be the best masjid in town. The other masajid would look not the same as our masjid, for example, right? So they would build it big and with decorations, with colors, with all kinds of things that is of no purpose whatsoever, just for it to look nice. And so this is also one of the ways. But what is then that brings us to the meaning of what is supposed to be done? Umar radiallahu anhu, when he ordered, when he was given the commands, when the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ was to be expanded, he said, "Akinna an-nasa min al-matar." Akinna an-nas min al-matar, that means protect them from the rain. When you build it, protect them from the rain. So that means whatever is benefiting for the people, do it. Make the installation very good, make it comfortable. Do whatever means that would makes people comfortable. Cold, hot, whatever. Put air conditioning, no problem. These are the norms of the people nowadays, no problem. Make things easy for the people in the masjid. Akinna an-nasa min al-matar. And comes under that, whatever is comfortable for the people. وَإِيَّاكَ أَن تُحَمِّرْ أَوْ تُصَفِّرْ. He said to him, don't you ever make red and yellow and this and that. That means the decorating the masjid. Stay away from that. Why? Because it distracts the people from the masjid, plus there's no benefit in it whatsoever. And as Abdullah ibn Mas'ud also radiallahu anhu, he said, يَتَبَاهُونَ بِهَا ثُمَّ لَا يُعَمِّرُونَها إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. يَتَبَاهُونَ بِالْمَسَاجِدِ. They're competing, they're boasting, our masjid is the best masjid and so on. Then they don't occupy it except little. Only few of them, they come to the masjid. So you find the masjid, millions of dollars are spent in the masjid, and only few people, they come to the masjid. And this is all happening. Right? This is how the miraculous ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba mentioned it. And Abdullah ibn Abbas, he said, لا تزخرفنها كما زخرفت اليهود والنصارى. Which means, for sure, by Allah, definitely, you will adorn your masajid like the Jews and the Christians did to their places of worship. So, but because they were told that this is going to happen. And it happened exactly as the Prophet ﷺ said. Which shows that if you want to build a masjid, ask the people of knowledge before you build the masjid. Build the masjid, make it as big as you can, mashallah. Space-wise, no problem. Comfort-wise, make it comfortable, as the ulama, they say. But why you have to make it all kinds of decorations inside? And don't take an evidence of the Masjid al-Nabawi now or the Masjid. This is not evidence. Adilla, or the evidence is from the deen, we take it from where? From the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. We don't take it from the actions. These can be explained in many different ways, and there's wisdom behind why it continues to be that way, because of to push away harm, bringing benefits. But as far as the original ruling in the matters is that at the same time not to belittle the masajid, that people for example, in a place, there's so much details to this, but you don't make the masjid in a neighborhood or people living in lofty houses and then the masjid is the worst place that they have in the community. That's also looks disrespectful to the house of Allah. Like as if they don't care about the house of Allah, so they made something. So it's a very delicate situation. But at the same time, you make it according to the norm of what is, there's nothing wrong to make it in the norm of what in the neighborhood, the houses are, or the places where people are living. But as long as there's nothing in there that there's no purpose of it, there's no reason for it, there's no benefit of it. And that's why these beautiful domes and all of these types of things is of no benefit whatsoever. But if it happened, it's alhamdulillah, it's still a masajid, we pray in it, and the Prophet ﷺ, what he forbade is to be precise again, so that we don't look down at the houses of Allah. Masajid are masajid, and we should respect the masajid and be happy that there's masajid. No doubt about this, inshallah. But not to go around and to talk bad about the masajid, otherwise we're doing the same thing. We're saying our masjid is better than other masajid because we're more humble. Well, we're doing the same thing in the hadith. Right? حتى يتباهى الناس في المساجد. So whether don't call your masjid is better masjid because it's a more humble masjid, and the other masajid, you're falling into the same trap here. لا تقوم الساعة حتى يتباهى الناس في المساجد. The hour is not going to be established till people are boasting with regards to the masajid. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from the evil within our own selves. And just this is, that means it's tanbih. It's just a small reminder that everything requires for us to have knowledge. So it should not be left to our desires, even building the masajid, everything that we do, our salah, our ibadah, things like this. And be comfortable, be sure, inshallah, that the people of knowledge, some people, they're afraid if they ask the people of knowledge, they'll tell them something extremely extreme or something like this. No, people of knowledge will, inshallah ta'ala, especially the kibar of Ahl Ilm, will give us the right verdict, inshallah ta'ala, with regards to the environment and the circumstances we have, without undermining also the desires of the people, according to the deen of Allah. There's a whole bunch of questions. We'll take one question and then we leave the rest after the salah, inshallah. I know that this, for those who are online, it might be too much for them, but because of the time, if you guys don't mind, we'll continue after the salah. But one says, when washing the ears in the wudu, should one wash the whole thing or just the inside? The ears are not to be washed in wudu. The ears are to be wiped in wudu, not washed. حكم الأذنين المسح. You wipe, right? So you wipe over the head, and either with the same water you wipe the ears, or you get new water and you wipe. So it means water is not running on the ears or in the ears, of course. Wiping. So when you wipe the ears, you wipe the outside and the inside. So the forefinger go inside to the best of your ability in these grooves of the ears, and with the index finger you wipe the back of your ear, because this is all part of the head, right? And it's only one time. As a rule of al-masih, anything that we are commanded to make masih, to wipe over, it's only one time. So don't do it 3 times, and don't keep on doing weird things, and you making sure that I covered. Is all weird stuff. It's ghulu, right? It's extremism. Just wipe it one time, and that's it, with the same water of the head or extra one. But we'll stop here if you guys don't mind. Then we can continue after salah if you have. Oh, I said index. Yeah, the thumb is outside. I'm sorry. The thumb is the outside. The thumb is outside and the index is inside. Yes, jazakumullah khair. Okay, we'll have the adhan, and inshallah pray 2 rak'ah for after the adhan, and then make the salah. Then after the salah, inshallah ta'ala, we'll answer the questions, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum. Wa sallallahu sallam wa baraka Muhammad wa sahbihi wa sallam. سبحانك اللهم ربنا وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك.